The Newberry Library exhibition, Mapping Outside the Lines, showcases how map makers have developed a wide variety of lines to bring our world to life. The exhibition features dozens of diagrams, drawings, engravings, and lithographs, the majority from the Newberry's map collections, which number in the hundreds of thousands. Mapping Outside the Lines is free, open to all, and runs through February 14th, 2026 at the Newberry Library. For more information, visit newberry.org. Every Chicagoan knows the Loop means business, and membership with the Chicago Loop Alliance can connect you with the powerful network of leaders and innovators helping shape the city's most visible district. As a member, you'll gain access to marketing opportunities, news, events, and neighborhood initiatives to highlight your business. Plus, you can make meaningful connections with peers, partners, and community stakeholders. Get connected at loopchicago.com/join. Today on CityCast Chicago, finally a transit funding bill is headed to the governor's desk. We talking about what made it in the final $1.5 billion package, plus where to find food support and free events around the city. It's Tuesday, November 4th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I'm joined in the virtual studio this morning with executive producer Simone Alicea. How you doing, my friend? It's been a couple of days.
It has been. Hey, Jacoby, how are you?
I'm doing well. How was your weekend?
It was good. There were, some final Halloween festivities and
what was the
things.
final costume?
I wasn't costumed
Okay.
in the end.
Understood. On Halloween night, I went to bed very late. Because as I've told people a few times over the last few weeks, my sister was getting married on that day. It was very beautiful. She looked amazing. Her partner, Chuck, who I've been friends with for the last decade, he looked amazing. Yeah, it was a cool weekend overall. And the Bears won. Bear down. As I was, kind of enjoying the festivities, I did get the alert on my phone that a $1.5 billion funding bill came through in the middle of the night, Simone, which my voice sounds like I'm really shocked. Like I'm performing shocking off of y'all. But, we've been doing this for a few years, and lawmakers love some late at night, legislation.
Oh, the Capitol is the hottest club in Illinois, apparently. That is Springfield is where it's at if you want some late night shenanigans. But yeah, lawmakers, $1.5 billion package. Should we dig into some of the funding mechanisms here for this big transit bailout we've been talking about for a while?
Yeah, I was going to say, based on y'all predictions to what actually was in it, was it too far off when we look at some of these details?
Well, it's interesting because CTA, Metra, Pace have been facing this gigantic fiscal cliff. All this summer, we'd been talking about some $770 million revised down to over $200 million.
Yeah.
But, had been on the horizon for a long time, especially with COVID funding running out. In the spring, lawmakers were very keen on, there would be no new funding without restructuring the Regional Transportation Authority. That part, lawmakers were pretty agreed upon, but this funding thing was just nagging. They didn't figure it out in the spring. Last week, we're in the middle of the final week of the veto session, just a couple days left. And, we kind of weren't hearing anything. And then this plan comes out from House Democrats that involves a bunch of taxes not related to transportation or transit at all. There were some streaming taxes. There was this proposal that was very, very untried, very interesting, taxing billionaires' sort of unrealized assets, commercial gains, or capital gains rather. And the governor, that plan came out and we're like, oh, so I guess this is the plan they're working on. The governor came out and was like, no, this isn't going to work. I don't like any of this for various reasons. And so then we're like, okay, there's 36 hours left in the session. What are you going to do? And then at 4 a.m. on Halloween, we finally have this plan, which includes none of the sort of controversial statewide taxes, no streaming tax, no delivery charge, no, right, all of this stuff that we had been possibly talking about to fund transit. Instead, we got stuff that sounds a lot more boring. So the bulk of the money is going to be coming from redirecting revenue from gas taxes, motor fuel taxes that folks are familiar with. Typically, historically, those taxes have gone to fund road construction in Illinois. They're redirecting some of that to Chicago area transit. That accounts for $860 million. Then there's going to be $200 million from interest growing in the road fund, which is a state fund that is also, again, as it's they named it the road fund because it's typically used for road construction projects again. And this is like a really controversial element of should the state be using road fund.
But the state constitution allows it to be used for like transportation related purposes. And of course, pretty easy to argue that
transit is a transportation related purpose.
Right. And avoiding 40% service cuts is transportation related.
Is transportation related. Yeah. And then there is going to be $478 million raised from raising an existing RTA sales tax to 1% in the collar counties, Lake McHenry, Kane, DuPage, and Will, and then to 1.25% in Cook County. So these are these are just your regular sales taxes that we all pay, but those taxes are going to go up a little bit for those of us in the service area. The last thing is there's also going to be tolls are going up in Northern Illinois, which no one likes to hear. They're going up 45 cents for capital programs and tollway products. That's not going directly to transit.
The reaction I'm thinking about the reaction from those kind of collar counties in, the parts of Northern Illinois where the toll roads are going up. I feel like their frustration and ultimate maybe disagreement with a lot of this funding is in some ways founded because I think, asking them to pay a good portion of this while the construction of the Northern Illinois Transit Authority and a lot of that revenue will kind of favor Chicago. Again, I understand them.
Well, and it's less, I would say you're seeing less pushback from the collar counties on the funding element necessarily. I think there are some qualms there, but it's not the biggest push. I think what you're seeing it is from downstate lawmakers. Their qualms are sort of twofold. One, they're like, hey, we need help with road construction. Like our roads need help. And like, this is money that we would have used. And now it's going to be used for Chicago transit that we don't use. In addition to that, they didn't get as much money for transit projects, for public transportation projects downstate as they wanted to get. You can kind of see, it's very much another like, of course, Chicago gets everything. We're paying for stuff that Chicago is getting. Of course, we know when it comes to public transit, it is a huge economic driver for the state. Chicago is in and of itself, but having one of the reasons we is because we have a public transit system that allows people to get to their jobs to generate that economic power, right? And if, as we've said multiple times on this show, if you do not have a transit system that works, you are shoving everyone onto those roads, creating more congestion, making it even harder for everybody, including drivers, to get around and to, again, generate that economic activity that we are generating for the rest of the state. The other thing that's interesting, too, is the fare box recovery is going down. So Illinois has had one of the highest requirements for how much money for public transit is supposed to come from the fare box, how much we pay for fares. It's been like 50%. And now that's been revised down to 25%.
And I'm interested, given that Metra CTA announced that fares were planning to go up in February of next year. I wonder how this new Northern Illinois Transit Authority, which I think you were about to get in, like you said, back in the spring, lawmakers said there wouldn't be funding without some major restructuring. And it looks like they got that. The RTA is getting a new name. They'll have the ability to establish a universal fare system, coordinate scheduling better between the 3 service agencies, and the board will be comprised of 20 members, 5 appointed by the mayor of Chicago, 5 by the Cook County Board President, 5 by the governor, and 5 collectively by Lake, McHenry, DuPage, Kane, and Will counties. I think you were about to get into this may be where one of those points of contention is, because people feel that this board is largely set up in favor of, Chicago's and the Chicagoland public transit, which, as we've gotten into multiple times, it probably should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough for those for us sitting in the city to not be like, well, yeah, this is where most of the transit happens. But those suburban leaders from those collar counties, basically, each of them only gets one appointee to this new board of this new agency, while you have 5 from Chicago, 5 from Cook County. Now, that assumes that Chicago and Cook County are aligned on all things transit, which is not always the case, right? There are things that suburban Cook County needs and wants that might be different from what the city of Chicago wants. There's also definitely no guarantee that the governor is going to be aligned with, and that gubernatorial appointees are going to be aligned with what the county and the city want. Certainly, we have seen Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker clash over multiple things, but, it is sort of a reduction insofar as each of those individual collar counties sort of has less individual say. And there's no guarantee that those 5 board members are all going to agree, because it's not clear that McHenry County wants the same things as DuPage County or wants the same things as Lake County, for example, right? The original Regional Transportation Authority was sort of a, kind of a glorified bookkeeping. It's kind of how I would describe how that agency works. Basically, that was the agency through which all of that state funding, the state funding we did have, would kind of funnel, and they would funnel that out to CTA, Metra, and PACE. Under this new system, as you said, they will actually be able to sort of create policy decisions that will affect all 3 transit agencies. Now, those 3 transit agencies are also still going to have their own boards, but those boards are going to report to the NETA board. The other thing that they've tasked this new agency is creating a public safety task force. They're being directed to work with, Cook County sheriffs, the individual sort of municipal police departments that might touch transit. It's a little unclear. It doesn't direct them to create a specific transit law enforcement agency.
It does seem like there is some coordination around creating a transit ambassador program, which is non-law enforcement people who are there to kind of help people, direct people towards resources, services, how to best use all of these different transit agencies.
I think there's probably still a lot to kind of unpack, and sort of, I will be curious to see, how the politics shift again as appointments begin happening for this new transit authority.
November is Homelessness Awareness Month. Now, most of us know homelessness is a problem in Chicago. We see our neighbors sleeping in parks and bus stations, and we want to help. That's why in November, Deborah's Place is focused on raising awareness about what actually works. Permanent housing, not just overnight shelter, paired with supportive services. At Deborah's Place, that model, permanent supportive housing, has helped thousands of women find paths towards stability. When we can provide housing paired with necessary resources, our communities become safer and more livable for all Chicagoans. So learn more about events in the community and how you can support Deborah's Place at deborahsplace.org. "2026 will be here sooner than you think, which means it's already election season, my friends. And Chicago needs election judges for the March 17th primary. As an election judge, you'll help your neighbors cast their votes by setting up polling stations and answering voter questions. The requirements are you have to be a U.S. citizen and registered voter in Cook County. And if you also speak Spanish, Hindi, Polish, Korean, Chinese, or Tagalog, then they definitely need your help. Earn up to $230 and help your community on Election Day. Plus, high school juniors and seniors can also apply. So if you know a student with a 3.0 GPA and an interest in civics, then let them know. Head to pollworker.chicagoelections.gov or call 312-269-7984. At this point, it's been days since people not only in Illinois, Chicago, but across the country have, kind of woken up to not getting their monthly SNAP benefits, which so many people, millions of people across the state require on for food support in the system. And, one thing I've been seeing across my timelines is organizations and just, everyday Chicagoans kind of showcasing the different mutual aid groups, food support organizations, even the restaurants in the city that are providing kind of discounted meals or free meals all together this week. And people really doing whatever they can, from pointing people to the Chicago Food Depository to, I saw Good Kids Mad City saying, hey, we got 25 boxes that we could put together that we're going to deliver over the next couple of weeks. Simone, what are a couple of places you've come by?
Yeah, so you mentioned the Chicago Food Depository, which does have a map and like sort of a list of places across Chicagoland that can just be really useful to get a sense of like what is close by, what is in your neighborhood. You put in your zip code. So like near me off bat, there's New Seed Pantry, Ravenswood Community Services, Care for Friends, Care for Real, the Friendship Center, a few churches as well. And then Jacoby, you found this, it's almost like a zine here of a mutual aid map that looks really, really useful.
Yeah, shout out to Mutual Aid Chicago, communitykitchenchicago.org, where you can find it. And amongst their resources is they got the Chicagoland food pantries, Chicagoland pantry boxes, and like you mentioned, the food aid map, which will show you where a good portion of the city's food pantries are. I was kind of looking around my mom's house on South Chicago, and there's the Juan Diego Food Pantry on 88th and Commercial. Up in South Shore, there's the South Shore Love Fridge, the Bryn Mawr Community Foundation Pantry on 70th and Jeffrey. And like you said, it's a map you can easily navigate and kind of zoom in on where you live, where family live.
I also like that they have some differing elements. So like they also have a list of, people who do hot food programs. So it's like if you need a hot meal right now, Brave Space Alliance, Open Kitchen, Kenwood. And so that's another option as well.
A couple of restaurants that I saw, Kale My Name, I saw their Instagram saying they're offering free full meals to anyone in need, 3 to 5 p.m. daily. Manny's is giving out free meals to SNAP recipients starting this week. Soul Food Lounge is providing free meals today from noon to 3 p.m. for people in need. Friends over at Block Club Chicago put together a list of some of the restaurants they've spotted.
Right now we're in sort of this limbo situation because, federal judges ruled on Friday that the Trump administration has to use contingent funds that are available to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, has to use those funds to keep these benefits going. However, even after those rulings, it was clear that those benefits were not going to be able to immediately appear for people who use SNAP, which stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. There's also the possibility of an appeal, which of course makes things even more complicated. So we're gonna put some links in the show notes to find places where you can find resources. But again, as Jacoby said, also to volunteer either time, material, or money, because now is the time to for Chicago. I know we've already been coming together for so many things, but I think this is one specific place that people are really going to be feeling it. If there are other individual events, food drives or community meals or things like that you need help publicizing, let us know. Chicago@citycast.fm. That's our email. Or you can text us at 773-780-0246.
There's this feeling when people from out of town will say something like, man, things are crazy in Chicago right now. And, depending on how they say it and what follows that sentence, I have one of various reactions. But this weekend, when people would say, oh, things are crazy in Chicago right now, in my head, I'm just like, you could be talking about so many things right now.
Right. Which thing are you commenting on right now?
Yeah. It's really tough out here. Like, it always is, but like the various ways people are kind of under attack right now, just from the cruelty of the way like the federal government is moving.
Nobody is untouched, I think, in Chicago right now. And that's on top of the other stuff that we would also already be talking about because we cover the news, like, transit funding in Springfield, like the city budget. There is a lot going on right now. And yeah, I think I don't really have a conclusion to that statement. It's just a lot. And we're doing what we can.
On top of all of that, it's expensive. It feels like you leave your house. It costs money just to take a deep breath, get a glass of water. And so we want to talk about a few free things that are going on in and around the city this week, things that you can find at our website, chicago.citycast.fm. When you check out our events calendar, Simone, what's a couple of your favorite on the list?
Yeah, I have 3 that I want to point out. So happening tonight is a free open mic at Book Club, which is kind of a cool looking venue. Like, it looks very much like a basement show style kind of thing. And that is an open mic that is free. I do think there's like a lottery for who gets up on stage, but I think that one looks really interesting. Another one that caught my eye happening tomorrow at Austin Town Hall is it's a whole play called Bingo Hall, based on a young Indigenous person's choice to go to college or stay on the reservation. But I think that that to me is really cool, that that's like a whole production and play. We talk about theater so much in Chicago, and this one is free through the Park District. Last one happening up near me at Eli T-Bar. There's going to be a book, puzzle, or board game swap, which is free to attend. And obviously, if you bring something, you'll swap something and you'll get something for free. I think this is I am someone who loves all 3 of those things, books, puzzles, and board games. But also, as we think about the holidays and potential gift giving, this might be, if you have something that you are willing to part with, maybe you can get something that is new to you or new to somebody that you might be gifting it to. And I think there's another puzzle swap on our list too at the Archer Heights Library branch this week as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to cheat on my picks because they are free to enter, but you may have to pay a lot of money once you get inside. And that's the Chicago Vendor Market, which is taking place this weekend. That's up at the She Shed in Bucktown. And then the next day, you got the Ramova Community Market at the Ramova Theater in Bridgeport. I feel like we moving our community markets indoors over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. And then, of course, there are some cool outdoor events if you do want to get outside. One that caught my eye, Beavers by Moonlight, which is out in Willow Springs. They do the Cook County Forest Preserves out there does some really great events. And this is literally go out in the evening to look for beavers because beavers are returning to the Chicagoland river system. And it's so it's actually a cool story of environmental restoration. And then, of course, we also have on our list some free museum days. Art Institute of Chicago, free on Monday, November 10th. Free admission also to the Botanic Garden on the 10th in Glencoe. And then free admission to the Chicago History Museum in Lincoln Park. That's happening on Thursday.
If you want to check out the events we were talking about, head to chicago.citycast.fm. Check out our events calendar, and shout out to our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Emmy Mack, for working tirelessly. Is always out here. And there's not a light pole that she's not looking at to make sure that there isn't something attached to it with some events or something so she can put it on this list for y'all. So the least you could do is check it out. Share with your friends and family. I want to give a huge thank you to executive producer Simone Alicea for making time.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge shout out to our newest member, Adele Marie B. I see you. Clearly, that ad-free listening got the best of you. Or maybe it was the neighbors only events. You saw that you had missed that on the last few when we pulled up at Ramova. We was out there bird watching. We didn't take some tours through downtown. You wanted to get in on it. And so I appreciate you joining up. And if y'all trying to get like Adele Marie and you want to pay a little $10 a month or maybe go on throw us the full Cino for the year, and head over to membership.citycast.fm. I can't get out of here without some good news. A couple of my favorite Chicago rappers have been on a tear lately, including Saba dropping his latest tape, Coffee, last week. He is going to be at Metro with all the Pivot Gang at the end of the month on November 28th. And of course, my favorite Chicago artist, my big brother, who's celebrating his birthday today, just dropped Kamehameha Wave featuring my brother Kyle Lee. You can stream both of those wherever you get your music. I'll drop links in the show notes. And again, one more time. Please reach out to us, 773-780-0246. Name, neighborhood, and just say hi. Just drop by. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.